Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. Have you played around with the Deepin desktop and found you enjoyed it, but you've been waiting for the stable version 20 release? Well, maybe you don't have to anymore. There's a new kid on the block called UbuntuDDE, and today we're going to give it a spin. See you after the intro. Okay, welcome back. Well, as I said, I'm going to take a quick look today at UbuntuDDE. It's another remix using the Ubuntu 2004 base, and I'm quite interested to see what it's like. I was impressed with the Cinnamon remix, and I'm hoping this is going to be on a par. I last looked at Deepin back in November of last year, and I was relatively impressed. And I said I would look at version 20 when it came out. And initially that was planned for January, but we're still at the beta stage, even though we're just about to get to June. And I'm sure that the thing that's been going around has caused the delays. But you may not need to wait any longer if this remix is any good. To start off with, it comes with the LTS Ubuntu base, so that's a good thing. Deepin, the last version, was based on Debian stable, but it has been based on Ubuntu in the past. There were some concerns, though. The main concern, and to my knowledge it's never actually been proven, was that Deepin used a software center that, well, what was it? It was a Wuhan-based web software center. And there were all sorts of concerns over, did it contain spyware? Did it not contain spyware? I don't think it was ever proven. But in this remix, that's been removed apparently. And the developers have just gone over to the standard Ubuntu Software Center. So for those who enjoyed using Deepin but had a few concerns, that should help to, well, calm those worries. The other thing for me, well, it's a minor thing really, but the use of English on the Deepin system was, shall we say, interesting. It was quite amusing to start off with when you were installing the system, watching the slideshow go past and seeing Chinese English being used, which really didn't make a lot of sense. Now, for me, that's amusing to see it for the first time, but I have to admit it would put me off a distribution, it really would, because how much effort does it actually take to get a native English speaker to proofread a few things? I see that as a fairly minor thing, you know, in order to get it fixed. So I wasn't really that happy with that. But hey, you know, it doesn't really matter. But this is a full Ubuntu remix. It's not an official flavour yet, but I'm told that that's what it's planning. It wants to become an official flavour. And as to the question of, well, hold on, isn't the Deepin desktop environment already an option if you run Ubuntu? Can't you just install it, do a quick apt install Deepin desktop environment? And of course you can. But the developers say that actually this is more than that. It's a fusion of selective packages and design changes that the Ubuntu DDE team have actually made. And you always get a cleaner experience if you start off by installing the version of a desktop environment that you want from an ISO that has it as the default. So let's have a look at the website and see what they have to say. Okay, so we're on the split view now, and you can see the very blue UbuntuDDE website in front of you. It's just UbuntuDDE.com. And it has the strap line there, powerful Ubuntu with the most beautiful desktop environment. Does that roll off the tongue as a native English speaker? Not quite, but okay, it's not dreadful. And then it tells us it's a remix flavour of Ubuntu with the Deepin desktop environment. UbuntuDDE is a Linux distribution based on Ubuntu with the most beautiful desktop environment. Okay, its initial release is based on Ubuntu Focal, and it's going to be supported by the UbuntuDDE community. Fine, and let's move onwards. A powerful base system. So it's a fusion of Ubuntu and a beautiful desktop environment in the Linux world. Let me just reread that again. UbuntuDDE OS is a fusion of Ubuntu base system created by Canonical and Ubuntu strong community and a beautiful desktop environment in the Linux world. Deepin desktop environment. I think you mean, and one of the most beautiful desktop environments in the Linux world. With a stable kernel of Ubuntu and a better support on graphics drivers. Right, okay. Guys, I think your website looks very nice. Please sort out the English. Get a native English speaker to proofread it for you, because it just doesn't sound right to a native English speaker. It's a minor thing, but this sort of stuff can put me off, and I'm sure it can put other people off. The rest of it just goes through the standard sort of things that you would expect: the file manager, the control center, the software center, etc., etc. Okay. So they've started well. It's very stylized, and I remember Deepin being very stylized, and I enjoyed playing with it. And I have no doubt that that's going to be the same experience now. And to an extent, that's why I'm picking up on minor things. If this is going to be an official Ubuntu flavour, it needs to get absolutely everything right. And that includes proofreading the text on the website. Right, enough said. Let's have a look at the distro itself. Let's fire it up, see what we find. Right, guys, so you should see in front of you UbuntuDDE. I've booted the ISO in VirtualBox with the normal settings that I give virtual machines. So it's got 8 gig of RAM, 30 plus gigs of a virtual hard drive, and I've given it 2 threads of my i5 processor. The ISO booted very quickly, and I'm pleased to see that it's straight into full HD 1920 by 1080. I didn't have to mess around with guest additions or anything. And as you can see, I've got a very nice, clean, blue Ubuntu desktop, and very clearly Ubuntu. My first impressions, very similar to the Ubuntu Cinnamon remix, is that you cannot mistake this for anything other than an Ubuntu distro, even if it's not an official flavour yet. So we'll look through this interface later on, but let's just get on with the process of installing it. The install icon is on the desktop, and it looks to me like we're using the standard Ubuntu Ubiquity installer. I could be wrong, but that's what it's looking like. And let me set my language, British English, and hit next. It's picked up the correct time zone, so next. It's picked up the correct keyboard, so next. I've just booted this in BIOS mode for simplicity, so I'm going to let it carry on. I see it's creating a 4 gig swap partition by default. Okay, we'll let it do that, and let me just enter my name. As normal, I'll go with OTB, and then enter my password twice. And let's move on. So it's showing me how it's going to configure the system. That all looks good to me. Let's just install. Am I sure? Yes, I am. And I will speed this up in a second. I just want to see some of the slideshow to see if modifications have been made to ensure that we are getting proper English. I don't see anything at the moment other than Ubuntu with the most beautiful desktop environment. Okay. Look, we'll come back in a second. I'll speed it up and we'll comment on this afterwards. Right, so that's the installation complete and pretty much what we would have expected. Quick, painless, requiring very little interaction. So an Ubuntu install in all but name. We weren't treated to a slideshow. I'm not that bothered about that, to be honest. It just came across as very clean and simple, and I'm all for that. So I'm going to restart this system now, and we'll come back once I'm up and running. Right, so I've just rebooted UbuntuDDE after the installation. It did remove the ISO, which is always good to see, and I'm immediately presented with this login screen. Not quite sure what this is, but no matter. Let me just log in into the OTB account. And right, a friendly reminder. It has detected you're using a virtual machine, which will affect the system performance and operation. Effect mode, have a delicate experience. Normal mode, enjoy the fast performance. Guys, sort the English out, please. You really need to do that. What should we go for? I'm going to try effect mode. I don't know if this will work within VirtualBox, but we'll soon find out, I suppose. And if not, we'll go back to doing normal mode. But we seem to have booted in without a problem. And as you can see, the desktop looks pretty much, well, what it was like on the live ISO. We've got this bar at the bottom, some quite nice, if very plain, blue wallpaper, but I'm good with that. That's neither here nor there. And if I remember from the last time I used this, you can either have the menu in this gnome-like mode, or you can reduce it to get a normal menu, which would be my preference. If I right-click on this launcher, we also have beautiful mode and efficient mode. So beautiful mode is obviously the plank-like dock, and if we go into efficient mode, we then have, well, a dock or a panel or whatever you want to call it that goes across the whole of the screen. So the first thing I would do would be to change it. Whether you decide to do that or not is completely up to yourself. For me, this particular view is not something that I would ever want. It always reminds me of something that you would have if you had a touch screen, perhaps. But other than that, the menu looks pretty good. What do we have here? Okay, so you can move it to top, bottom, left or right. You can play with the size. You can play with whether it's hidden or whether it just hides when you open a window. And power, onboard and date time as possible plugins. I'm not sure what onboard is. Let's click that and see if anything comes up. Right, I can't really see anything there. Onboard, what's that? I'm right-clicking it and left-clicking it. Oh, it's, right, okay, I've got it. It's an on-screen keyboard. Okay, quite useful. So, nice and simple to bring up. I can see that the Ubuntu Software Center is asking to install updates since Ubuntu 20.04 was released. I'm going to say remind me later for that. So let's just have a look through the menu. So we've got the file manager. I wonder what that is. About the Deepin file manager. Right, so there hasn't been a complete transition over standard packages by the look of it. It's still kept some of the custom packages that were installed on Deepin proper, if you like. Not an issue. It integrates well with the system. And what's this at the bottom? Right, okay. So that's just a quick zoom bar. And presumably, yeah, we can maximize it, minimize it to the taskbar. Okay, it doesn't actually minimize to a Windows list. It just minimizes to the icon. Well, that's fine. That works. A screenshot tool, a text editor. I presume the text editor is again going to be the Deepin one. Let's go to the about. Oh, no, it's not. It's Gedit. Okay, good. I don't know what was the default on the actual version of Deepin. Deepin's Deepin. Thunderbird Mail, that's great. What's the terminal? Let's have a look and see. It is the Deepin terminal. Okay. I'm not so sure about the colour scheme with the bluish background, but minor things, all that can be changed. So it comes with Thunderbird Mail as standard, a document scanner. If I hit computer, what does that do? Okay, it just opens up the file manager and gives me an overview of the directory structure. Show desktop, trash, the control center. Well, we'll come down to that afterwards. And multitasking view. Right, okay. So this presumably is giving me two different desktops, and I can add or get rid of them as required. Okay, that's quite nice. Interesting. I see immediately that I've got different wallpaper now. I wonder if I can just get back to the original desktop by Alt Control left or right. No, I don't seem to be able to do that. Is it that one? Multitasking view. Oh, right. I was going to say the wallpaper obviously changes dynamically, but it's changed back to the standard one now. So that's multitasking. What else have we got? A document scanner, show desktop, all categories. Do I want to go to all categories? Why not? Internet. So we've got Thunderbird and Firefox installed by default. Video. We've got the MPV media player and celluloid. Graphics. We've got the GIMP installed, a Trill, and LibreOffice Draw. I presume on that basis in the Office category we're going to find the full LibreOffice suite, and yeah, that does seem to be the case. Games, okay, Sudoku, Mahjong and chess. And on the system, well, pretty much what you'd expect. Let's open up the system monitor and see what we've got here. Memory, it's using a gig of memory apparently. It's not lightweight, but this is a virtual machine, and for modern day desktop environments, that's not over the top, but clearly it's not something you're going to want to put on a laptop or a machine that has quite low specs. It's nice, plain and simple. I presume, again, this is a Deepin application. Yes, it is, the Deepin system monitor. So, yeah, there's nothing bad to say about it. It has quite a sensible app selection. You're going to want to add to it with your own apps, of course, but that's pretty much standard. What about software? Right, so we've got Synaptic Package Manager installed by default, and I'm really happy to see that, and a software store. I believe this is the standard Ubuntu software store, but we'll see this in a second. Let's go shopping. Rather than the Deepin web-based software store. This is going to make some people very happy because there were all sorts of issues concerning, worries about spyware, etc. in the old Deepin web store. Let's just have a look at this, what it is. Okay, it doesn't say Ubuntu software, but it very much feels like the Ubuntu store. And presumably Snap is installed by default here. But let's just check that out. So if I go to Synaptic, and we open that up, okay, let's just do a search for Snapd. libsnapd is clearly installed there. What about Flatpaks? Are they installed? It would be good to see support for both, really. Support for Flatpaks is also installed. Okay, all good. What about our terminal? Does Alt-Control-T bring up the terminal? Yes, it does. So let's have a look at how much space it's using. Okay, currently I've got a 36 gig virtual drive and it's using 6.1 gigs. There's not a lot here, but that's not over the top, really. Okay, I tell you what I didn't check before when I was looking in Synaptic, and I'm going to check that again. I want to have a look at the repos. I don't really want to see a PPA, but I suspect there may be one for UbuntuDDE. But let's have a look. Okay, so you've got your standard Ubuntu repos there, and yeah, you've got a PPA for UbuntuDDE. I sort of expected that. I suppose once this becomes an official flavour, there will be no need for that. Let's have a look at the settings. And with Deepin, we have this sidebar for our settings, which I have to say I quite like. So if we go to accounts, we get a lot more detail. Create a new user account, and then actually as soon as we click on one of the items, we get this kind of linear view of all of the other settings. So we've got our display settings here. You can see it's at 1920 by 1080. We can rotate it, we can change the brightness, and we've got a little sliding bar to change the scaling, which is good. Default applications. Okay, nice and easy to work. Let's just go back one. Personalization, so we can play around with transparency and themes. What theme is currently installed? Let's have a look. The Deepin default theme and the Deepin default icon theme. Okay, some of the pictures are starting to appear now. I would suspect it's taking time because, again, I'm in VirtualBox, and so the effects are not going to be great. It's very friendly, isn't it? It's very friendly and graphical. So, yeah, all good. Information there about our network and our sound. And we can move around by using this little menu bar at the bottom. So from sound, we go to time and date. Okay, so we can auto sync time, presumably with an NTP server. Let's just have a look at the time settings. Okay, nothing special there. power management. Monitor to suspend after so many minutes. Computer to suspend after whenever. Is a password required to wake up the monitor? Okay. Mouse and touchpad. Keyboard layout. Already set to English UK and British English. Even Ubuntu Mate doesn't get that right, because if I set up the installation as British English, I still have to play about with the keyboard layout once I'm into Mate. And keyboard shortcuts, of which there are potentially many, and the opportunity at the bottom to add custom shortcuts if you want. And what's this at the bottom? System information. So it's just telling me what it is. It's based on Ubuntu 2004, 64-bit, blah, 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 blah. Okay, the boot menu. Set a startup delay, and what theme do we want to apply? Okay, well, there's no option to apply other themes at the moment, but I could live with that. It's quite a nice control panel. So what next? Well, I'll tell you what we haven't looked at. We haven't looked at the right-click menu, which, again, is nice and clean. I do like the layout and the look and feel of this, I have to say, how everything's kind of rounded. Auto-merge, auto-arrange, open in terminal, display settings, corner settings. Right, so we've suddenly gone black. Oh, right, and I can go up here. Right, and set my own option here. So if I wanted to, I don't know, bring up the control center every time I go up to the top left, does that work? Well, let's just come out of here. I'm not quite sure how. Is it escape? Yeah, it looks to be that. And, well, it's not working. It's not working in VirtualBox, and to be honest, I seem to remember Deepin didn't work in VirtualBox either. So I'm not going to judge it for the hot corners not working for me. So let's go back to the right-click menu. What I did want to have a look at was the wallpaper selection, and I really quite like the way that this appears at the bottom. So we can choose whatever we want. Let's see what sort of selection we've got. We've got a massive selection. That is a good standard selection. I remember that I particularly like this one on the original Deepin that I looked at. I like the fact that you get the option to set it for only the lock screen or only the desktop. So what else have we got? Let's have a look. And I presume I just click out of that. Okay, so nice and easy. I presume with the screensaver it's similarly easy, and yeah. So how long you should wait, do you require a password, and what are all the standard wallpapers? So if I click on one, well, it's bright. Let's click apply. Okay, guys, well, enough playing with this. I think we've seen enough to form an initial opinion. My general impressions of this are positive, but let's go and have a chat. Right, so what do I think of UbuntuDDE? I'm impressed. In fact, I've come away from that quick look being just as impressed with UbuntuDDE as I was with the Cinnamon desktop, the remix that we looked at a few weeks ago. I like its clean lines. I personally feel a lot more comfortable now that the Deepin Software Center has been replaced by the Ubuntu Software Center. Hopefully that resolves many of the niggles or worries that some of you might have had. And it seems solid, it seems stable, and just as before, I think it's a very usable desktop. It looks very pretty. It's incredibly usable, and I don't think it's had anywhere near enough attention, the Deepin desktop I mean, as it perhaps deserves. It's not for lightweight systems, clearly, but on the majority of modern computers, it should run absolutely fine. And it's got the LTS base behind it, so I'm sure it'll go from strength to strength. And eventually, I'm pretty sure we're going to see it as another Ubuntu flavour. Yes, I did some nitpicking. There are some things it needs to sort out, things that would put me off. You've got to sort out the English on the website, guys. I think your website looks great, but it just doesn't sound right when you translate it into English. It almost looks like a Google Translate, which, as you're probably aware, doesn't always work exactly as you want. But these are minor niggles. The desktop itself is great, and I would highly recommend that everybody gives it a go and see what you think. So that's all I've got to say about this today. Apologies that there's been just the two videos this week, but as you know, I'm back at work, so time is now of the essence. But guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Please join me on LBRY. Come and join us on our Facebook group, and have a great weekend.